Let's go back to Rideau Hall, and Steve MacKinnon is speaking after being sworn in as Labor Minister.
Government is something that must be earned every day, and I detect a resolve among all of my caucus and cabinet colleagues to continue doing the work as we enter what will undoubtedly be a productive year, I think, a challenging year. And if we've learned nothing over the past few weeks, is what we assume to be true today in politics is not necessarily going to be true tomorrow.
Okay, can you just explain a bit more the approach of, quote, continuing the work? What does that mean? And if it is just continuing the agenda you already had, that was the agenda and the policy priorities that the people of Toronto St. Paul's looked at and said no to. So why is that the winning strategy?
I don't believe for a second that Canadians are judging dental care, whether it be dental care, whether it be a plan to tackle climate change, whether it be our supports during the pandemic, in a harsh way. I think that governments have a challenge every day to wake up and continue to offer solutions to Canadians. We will obviously continue to do that. We are very confident in the policies that we've set. We're also very confident that the contrast between our policies and the policies of our opponents is one that we will continue to make, and one that Canadians, I think, will bring into sharper relief as the year goes on. You know, I've seen a lot of things in my career in politics. I've seen things go up. I've seen things go down. The one constant is that things change. What we assume to be true today will not necessarily be true tomorrow.
Bonjour, Monsieur MacKinnon, Christian Noël de Radio-Canada.
Mr. MacKinnon, Christian Noël, Radio-Canada. When Mr. Trudeau speaks, when you speak, when the Council speaks, we always say we'll continue, continue, continue. People who listen to us at home say we want change, we want change, we want change. Isn't this the moment for the government to change direction? People look for, with the times we're living in, obviously every day we see images on TV, things that are happening that are making us think, hey, this has never happened before. The rate of change is a little bit dizzying for Canadians. But I know that in an election campaign and before an election campaign, people will sit down and will contrast, and they will see what are the offers of the different parties and will decide. It's not today that we're going into elections. People will have time to contemplate and consider the political offers in front of them. We are serene that people will judge us positively on all the changes that we've brought into the Canadian government. We are confident and serene with all of the policies that we've adopted, and I know that the Prime Minister will be an excellent salesman of those changes and policies during the year to come. Question. You say we're going to contrast with our adversaries. I imagine you mean Pierre Poilievre. He's been leader for 2 years. You're trying to contrast with him, and people seem to like him more than they like the Liberals and Prime Minister. So how will you, and will you, press on the gas, and putting this in the context where when we're discussing, and excuse the expression, demonization of the adversary with what's happened in the U.S., to what sense will you have the attitude of pressing on the gas? Answer. I think Canadians have the right to know the choices in front of them. They know the choices of policies. Do they know what we've accomplished together for Canadians, and do they know what will be the changes offered by our adversaries? So yes, I think we need to talk to Canadians more about the choices in front of them, and I know that Canadians have the intelligence and judgment to judge what is in front of them, and we are serene and very confident that once they do that, we'll be in a good position.
Thanks for taking my question. Just kind of building off of what my colleagues have already asked, it sounds like you're saying you don't necessarily think there needs to be any major changes. Can you confirm to us that there won't be any major changes coming to policy or cabinet or anything like that?
What I can confirm is that I'm going to go to work this afternoon as the Minister of Labour and Seniors and give my very best effort on behalf of Canadians in that particular portfolio. I'm a part of a team as well, a team of caucus colleagues that wake up every day and try to do the work for Canadians. That work's going to continue. We are entering what will be a very challenging year, an interesting year, and a promising year, I think. And we all have confidence that the Prime Minister will guide us through that year, and that we will continue to offer Canadians the solutions that we've been offering them.
You've mentioned a few times saying that things change and what we assume to be true today will not necessarily be true tomorrow. Can you explain what that means in the context of your government right now?
Well, no. What was the expression? Events, dear boy, events. The fact is that in politics, you can plan all you want. Things happen on a daily basis. I think we've seen a lot of them happen all over the world on a daily basis, even as we've entered the summer. So, of course, governments try to plan, manage, but also deal and have the agility to deal with events as they arise. And it just seems to me, as I'm sure it seems to all of you, that the number of head-spinning events that we've seen over the past few weeks has been quite remarkable, maybe unprecedented.
Bonjour, Monsieur MacKinnon. Michel Savard.
Hello, Mr. MacKinnon, Monsieur Savard, Canadian Press. Would you think Mark Carney would be an additional, useful addition to the government team? I think anybody who's willing to give his talents to the service of Canada, I would recommend. So I recommend anybody to jump. The water is tepid, the water is hot, and we are here working for Canadians. So obviously, if someone with Mr. Carney's pedigree, and I often meet people who are in this interested by public service, and I encourage them, obviously, to adhere to our political formation. And yes, you've seen what's happened in the U.S. I'd like to hear your sense of security. And also, do you think it's time for federal ministers have a bodyguard? As a whip, I've had to treat with many files, many incidences. We had an incident with Mark Miller the day before yesterday, who, to say the least, was troubling. All my heart goes out to him and his team. There is clearly more threats, more unknown. For me personally, I've never felt threatened in Gatineau. I walk around freely and happily in the streets of Gatineau, and therefore for me, I've experienced that differently. But there is definitely, and especially towards women, a higher number of threats and incidents who are, to say the least, troubling. As for the services offered, I know that the Minister of Public Safety regularly looks at this with the RCMP. I know he's very attentive to what is happening and what he observes, and I believe that the answer to all this continues to evolve and will adapt to the changes and incidents.
Minister Dylan Robertson from the Canadian Press. Your mandate letter is 2.5 years old at this point.
You're listening to Steve MacKinnon, the new Minister of Labour. He was sworn in just a few minutes ago at Rideau Hall, and he's taking over for Seamus O'Regan, who announced he was stepping down and would not run again in the next election. One of the questions he was asked was what he thoughts about Mark Carney, the former Bank of Canada governor, coming in, and he was told anyone willing to give their time and their energy and their skills is welcome, and with his pedigree especially.